This is an Annette Signs. This is my persuasive speech and audience validation. Guns, a tool for self-defense. In the United States, guns are American as baseball and mom and apple pie. I'm not here to argue the Second Amendment and whether the world at large should have guns. They do. I'm here to say guns have value and that guns can and do save lives. I understand that I may be somewhat more uniquely qualified than most due to having weapons training as part of the United States Army 3rd Ranger Battalion. But to me, the gun is simply a tool. As existentially, a person of sound mind is safer having a gun than not. So how do I take this existential argument and put it out to include the world? A world in which I acknowledge everyone with a gun is not of sound mind? This brings us back to the gun being only a tool that is either used for good or evil, depending on the yielder of that tool. According to feed.org, more people use guns in self-defense each year than die each year in car accidents. Millions of Americans have chosen to have a gun as their means of self-defense for themselves and their families. Guns do not guarantee your safety, but they can and do give you the ability to defend yourself against a physically superior, mentally unstable, or armed attacker, possibly all three at the same time. During a 5-year period, the Department of Justice confirmed a total of 338,700 defense gun uses in both violent attacks and property crimes where a victim was involved. That equals out to 67,400 people a year that don't become victims because they have used their tool, a gun, for self-defense. In 2016, 37,461 people died in vehicle accidents. In 2015, the number was 35,092 people. The head of the National Highway Safety Administration, Mark Rosenkind, called those numbers a crisis. Guns save nearly twice as many that number each year, which to me is amazing. As stated in JustFacts.com regarding President Obama, in 2013 he ordered the Department of Health and Human Services and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to conduct or sponsor research into the cause of gun violence and ways to prevent it. The committee studied defense gun uses and found for defense by victims is a common occurrence. These studies specifically looked at the effects of actual guns used in defense. In other words, incidents in which a gun was used by the crime victim in the sense of attacking or threatening offender, and found consistently lower injury rates for gun using crime victims than victims that use some other defense strategy. According to Harvard EDU, self-defense gun use is a rare and not as effective at preventing injury than other protective actions. Less than 1% of combat crimes have victims using guns for self-defense. Is what a crime victimization survey between 2017 and 2011 shows. The opponents of guns for self-defense would use those percentages of less than 1% and say that the percentage is so low that guns don't make enough of a difference and therefore lack the value I see in guns for self-defense. In closing, while the number of people that have used or legally owned guns for self-defense may be small, the numbers do exist. The negative done by criminals is an unfortunate fact of the world we live in. That being said, good, law-abiding citizens of sound mental health benefit from this tool, from the use of guns for self-defense. There is no way to argue those facts because that's what you have just heard, facts. Facts that show that guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens can and do get used for self-defense on a regular basis. These numbers may be low, but I guarantee you that anyone in those numbers is grateful they had and used their gun when needed for their self-defense, or perhaps a parent's, a sibling's, or even their child's. The gun is simply a tool, and any tool used properly has value and worth.